Let us see how to handle all these basic UI elements by using Playwright with TypeScript. If you wanted to know what are the list of keys it supports, always please refer the official Playwright documentation. The next topic what we are going to learn is radio button. So what is radio button, Vignesh? This is called as the radio button. Now, Vignesh, how to identify if it's a regular button or a radio button? There are two ways. One is by looking into the naked eye, which is to check if this is a radio button. Always a radio button will have a circular symbol. Whenever you see a circular symbol, it is a radio button. What is the difference between a radio button and a checkbox? One easily identifiable difference is radio button will be round in shape versus checkbox will be in square in shape. That's one easily identifiable difference. Hello everyone, welcome to Lambda Test. I'm your instructor Vignesh. This video is part of the playlist Playwright with TypeScript. In this video, we are going to see in detail how to handle the basic UI element such as text box, button, radio button and checkboxes. So let us see how to handle all these basic UI elements by using Playwright with TypeScript. So I have already created a project called as textbox button, radio button, checkbox handling, and I have already installed the Playwright, and also I have given the integration between Playwright and Lambda test. If you don't know how to do this, please watch my previous videos where I have already explained in detail how to set up the Playwright by installing the Playwright as well as setting up with the Lambda test. So here I have already written the basic code here. So let me walk you through all the code one by one. So first let me show you the text box handling. So in the text box handling, before we are going to the text box handling, there is one more thing which I need to explain here. So in all the previous videos, we were just writing one spec file, so I can directly go and change the import from test directly from the Playwright test to the Lambda test setup. But as we are proceeding forward in the playlist, there are going to be multiple spec files where we need to make this change. So the more harder it's getting into. So what I have did is I have created a file called dynamic test.ts, and here I'm importing the Playwright test as local test, and I'm importing the Lambda test from the Lambda test setup, and I'm also importing the .n file which holds the configurations. So here what basically I'm checking is, here from the .n file, here I'm going to change it the value either to be local or Lambda test. So when I change this to be local, and if I run the test, it will run it in local. If I change the value to be Lambda test, all the tests will be executing to Lambda test. So whenever I wanted to run it local versus Lambda test, I don't need to change anymore in the test spec file. I just need to change only in the .n file. And in the test spec file, here you have to import test from /dynamic test. That's the only thing which you need to be mindful of. So this file is being import test is being reflected in all the files. So if I say in the .n to run in local, all the spec files will be running in local. If I'm asking it to run it to the Lambda test, it will be running in the Lambda test. As simple as that. Do not worry if you don't understand this code. I'll anyway push this into the GitHub, so you can copy the code from the GitHub. So now let us jump into the text box handling. Now in the previous video, when we were writing the sample login test, we have already seen how to handle a text box the same way how I have written here, which means you have to go to the website, and once you go to the website, once you got the await page.locator, which means in this case I'm getting the, let me go back to the website. So here in the website I'm getting the email text box. So I get the email text box and I need to type something. This is called as text box, which means it is like a box which will allow you to type something. Predominantly this is what text box is used in the web automation. So here I can use it by using the fill method, and within the fill method I can pass the values. This we have already seen earlier. Also there is one more thing which we can do with the text box, which is here in the next line I'm entering the input password field with the password here. In the previous login test sample, what we have did is we entered the email, we entered the password, and we clicked on login button. But whenever as a human, when we are working on with the forms or whatever the thing, whenever we enter the username password, we will directly click on enter button, if you guys know that. So instead of clicking on login, I can also even ask Playwright to click on the enter keyword button. This is also possible in the text box. So what I have to do is I just need to say await page.locator input password. Instead of fill method, I have to go with the press method, and within this press method you can pass any key which you want. For example, if I'm putting the single quotes and I have to type the key name, in this case it's enter. Now similar to this, you can type any keys like backspace, control, space bar, like that. You can go and type any keys which you want. If you wanted to know what are the list of keys it support, always please refer the official Playwright documentation. So when I go to the playwright.dev website, and here in the search bar I'm going to search the method. So in this case the method name is press. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to search with the method name press, and I'm going to click on the classes which is from the keyboard. So here you can see these are the different buttons it supports: F1, F12, digital digits from 0 to 9, keys from A to Z, enter, home button, like whatever your requirement is you can type based on that. And after I entered the password and I clicked on OK, I'm just writing a simple assertion that hash main navigation, which is basically the main navigation bar, is visible or not, and I'm closing the page. That's it. So this is what I have done with the text box fill method. Now I'm going to run all the tests at one shot. First, let me explain all the tests I have written. The next interesting thing is press sequentially. What it means by press sequentially. So for instance, when you ask the Playwright to fill something, it will fill the values like bomb, like a bombarding, which means in the text box, it will throw all those values in one shot. Now, there are certain places where you need to enter the keys slowly. For example, let's say you're automating a payment website. In the payment website where you need to enter the card number, you can't directly put all those 16 values in one shot. Why? Because after you enter 4 digits, automatically the website will put a space for you, and then you have to enter the 4 digits. Like that you have to do. In case if you are using the fill method and you're bombarding it with the values, you will not enter the proper 16 digits. In that case, you have to use this method which is called as press sequentially. In this case, what I'm doing, I'm taking the same email field, but I'm using the press sequentially method, and I'm passing the email ID, but also I'm passing an option called as delay with 200. So here always in Playwright everything is in milliseconds, so 200 milliseconds, which is 0.2 seconds. So you can increase the value, depends on your use case. You can keep 1 second, 0.5 seconds, depends on your use case. So here I'm basically keeping as 0.2 seconds. So technically all this value will be entered in an interval of 0.2 seconds. That's the advantage of press sequential. So this is what highly we can do with the text box. So technically we'll enter the values either by using the fill method, or you will enter it by using the press sequential method. If your use case is to enter slowly, go with press sequential, and also pass the delay, because without passing the delay it will not type with any slowness or something. So always pass with delay. If you don't want it to be entered with any delay or something, you can directly use the fill method, and in wherever cases you wanted to press something in your keyboard like control, home, or 1 2 3, something like that, in that case you can use this press method and you can pass the corresponding key, and all the keys are already mentioned in the official documentation. Next is we will see how to do the button handling. Vignesh, what is button handling? For instance, let's say if I'm going back to our demo website, so here this is login is a button, this continue is a button, this login, register, all of these are button. We have already seen in our previous video that you can do a click operation on top of this button. Yes, correct. But apart from that, also you can do multiple other operations in that, which is regular button click, double click, and right click. What it means by that? So if I go to this demo website, here this demo website basically will scans the click which we are doing. For example, here if I'm doing a single left click, you can see it gives the output as click. If I'm doing a right click, you can see it gives the output to be as right click. Similarly, if I'm doing a double left click, you can see it is giving me a double click as a text. So what we are trying to learn here is, if your use case is to click once or to click multiple times or to do a right click, you can also do that in Playwright. So let us see how to do that. So first I'm going to the website as usual, then await page.locator.click. So when we are using dot click, this will by default do a regular left click only once. That's called as dot click. So as I have given a regular dot click, here you can see in the assertion I'm expecting for the text to be click, because here if I click once you can see the text is click. Now in the next test what I have written is, I have written as page.locator.dbl click. What it means by dbl click, it means double click. So here if I double click it, you can see the output as double click. So if you wanted to do double left click, you can go with dbl click. Now if I scroll down for the last one, for doing the right click, you will not have any method called as right click or something. It's still the click method, but within that you can pass as an option on which button you wanted to. So for example, if I mouse over to the button, you can see you can, by default it will go with the left button, but you can also change the button to be right, or even in case if you wanted to click on middle button, you can pass the middle button. So like this, so we have to use the regular click method, but we have to pass the button to be right. So this is how we will achieve the right click of the in the website by using Playwright. So after clicking on right, I'm just checking if it is right click. So these are the different click actions which you can perform in a button by using Playwright. Now the next topic what we are going to learn is radio button. So what is radio button, Vignesh? So if I go to this demo website, which is lambdatest.com/selenium playground/radio button demo. So here you can see these are different buttons. So don't always think that if a button should be in a square shape only it can be allowed to clicking. There are different types of button and we are going to see all the different types of button. So here this is called as a radio button. Vignesh, why are these special? Why are these buttons are called as radio buttons? The reason is because, let's say if I'm clicking on male, the moment I click on female, you will see the male value what we clicked earlier getting vanished. Similarly, now female has the click. If I click on male, you can see the female is getting vanished. This is called as the radio button. Now, Vignesh, how to identify if it's a regular button or a radio button? There are two ways. One is by looking into the naked eye, which is to check if this is a radio button. Always a radio button will have a circular symbol. Whenever you see a circular symbol, it is a radio button. But that's not a thumb rule. Even there can be radio button without the circles also. So how to find if that's a radio button without the circles? The easy way is inspect that button. 100% that button should have a attribute called as type equal to radio. That is your hint to check that this is a radio button. So if you see, as I inspected this male radio button, so this is the button which I'm inspecting. Here you can see it has an input tag which is okay, but you can see that type is radio. So only if the type is radio, it will behave as a radio button. So that's your simple hint to understand if it's a radio button. So now let us see how to automate this. So what I have did here is I'm going into the website. So this website sometimes shows the consent page and sometimes it doesn't. So for safer side, I just wrote an if block where if it shows the consent page, click on it. If it doesn't show, leave it. So after going to the website, I'm creating two constants here. So const male radio button and const female radio button, and I'm just writing page.locator of that locator. Why am I writing like this? Because in our previous step, for all the locators, we are just doing the operation only once. So I can write directly page.locator and the locator name. But here in this case, I'm going to write 3 or 4 operations on top of the locator. So instead of repeating this line again and again, instead I have written one single constant and I'm going to use this constant wherever I need it. So I have created a constant for male radio button and I have created a constant for the female radio button. Now, before handling the radio button, what am I going to do is, let me refresh the screen. So when the page loads for the first time, I'm going to check if none of the radio button are selected. That is super important because before making any selection, it's always important what is the default state. So what I'm going to do before doing any selection, I'm going to check if none of the radio buttons are selected. So how to do that assertion? So we can do it two ways. Both of them will work the exact same way. You can choose whichever you like it. So the way one assertion is await, expect, and I'm passing the male radio button, which is technically this page.locator, not to be checked. So you can call not to be checked. So to be checked, and the reverse of that is not to be checked. So I'm checking whether it's not to be checked. Similarly for female radio button also I'm checking not to be checked. Now for the way 2 of assertion, expect, await mail radio button, and the mail radio button I'm checking whether is checked. So this will return me whether it's checked or not. So in this case, I'm checking it to be falsy. Why? Because is checked is going to return me a false, because in this case by default it is not going to have a check mark. So it's going to return me a false, and I'm checking if it is falsy, and the same goes for second one too. So if you wanted, you can go with not to be checked, or if you wanted, you can go with to be falsy or to be truthy. Depends on your interest. So what is the first thing I'm doing is I'm doing await mail radio button dot check. The most important thing here is it's not click. Even though it's a button, it's not a click. For radio button, always you have to use the method called check. Don't use the click method. So here when I'm doing await mail radio button dot check, in next line I'm writing an assertion await expect mail radio button to be checked. In previous line we have written not to be checked because that's the default state, but here I'm checking to be checked. Why? Because I wanted to know after selecting it is it checked or not. Similarly, I'm checking out the female radio button and I'm checking if it is checked. In this case, I have took the second way of assertion, which is female radio button dot is checked to be truthy. So it depends on which type of assertion you want, you can check it out. This is called as the radio buttons. The next one which you're going to see is checkbox. Now, Vignesh, what is checkbox? So let me open the demo website. Again, I'm using the Lambda test Selenium playground / checkbox demo. So here, if I scroll down, like all of these are checkboxes, but I'm taking the last one as an example. This is called as a checkbox. Now, what is the difference between a radio button and a checkbox? One easily identifiable difference is radio button will be round in shape versus checkbox will be in square in shape. That's one easily identifiable difference. But from the web perspective, what is the difference? We have already seen that radio buttons, if you select one, the other value will get unselected, but checkboxes are not so. For example, if I'm selecting this, if I'm selecting option 2, option 1 still remains selected. Similarly, if I select option 3, even option 2 remains selected. So radio button will allow you to select only one value at a time, but checkboxes will allow you to select multiple values. Now, again, how to identify a checkbox? Does having the square symbol means it's always a checkbox? Not really. Sometimes there can be some websites where even though it does not have any square shapes, but still it will behave as a checkbox. Always it is important to inspect it and check the attributes of it. Like in radio buttons, I have told that it will always have type as radio, right? Similarly, 100% if it's a checkbox, it should always have the type to be checkbox. This attribute only defines and differs it from a regular button to a checkbox button. So if you have type equal to checkbox, 100% it's a checkbox. So now let us see how to handle this. Handling a checkbox versus handling a radio button is exactly same for Playwright. It has no difference. All the methods, all the assertions, everything follows the exact same pattern. So what am I going to do? Again, I'm writing the code to go to that website. Again, this code is to close the consent page. Here I have created three checkboxes, checkbox 1, checkbox 2 and checkbox 3. Now again here I am writing the two types of assertions, exactly the same what we have seen for the radio button. So for the first time when the page loads, let me refresh the screen. So when the page loads for the first time, none of the checkboxes would be have selected. You can see all of them are unselected. So what I'm doing, I'm just checking expect checkbox.1 not to be checked and not to be checked and not to be checked. All the three are not to be checked. Similarly, I'm also writing the same assertion in terms of way 2, which is await checkbox.1 is checked to be falsy. Similarly, is checked to be falsy. So I'm checking all of them to be falsy. Now what am I doing? I'm just checking all the three boxes. This is not possible in radio button, but it is possible in checkboxes. So I'm selecting all the three checkboxes and I'm checking if all the three are selected. I'm writing an assertion for the first one to be checked, for the second one to be checked, for the third one it's going to return checkbox 3 is checked to be truthy. Like this is from way 2. So what we learned here, handling the radio button versus handling the checkbox from Playwright perspective is exactly the same, no difference. Again here you have to use only the check method and not the click method. Please be mindful that whenever you automate the radio buttons or the checkboxes, please use the check method and not the regular click method which we use for the regular buttons. So we have clearly understood how to handle the basic UI elements such as text box, radio button, checkbox and regular buttons. I hope this video was insightful to you and thanks for watching. Please continue watching the rest of the videos in the playlist. Thank you.